Okay, so you may have seen the post last week that we picked up a hedgehog from Zoe's work that was quite underweight and malnourished and dehydrated. So he spent a few days recovering, and now we're going to start the process of rehabilitation today. So we're going to build a little bit of a run that only he can get out of and back into if he needs some food, and then we're going to gradually rear him off the food and release him back into the wild. Okay, so this is going to be the temporary enclosure, and we're going to put another enclosure inside and have some food in and just have a way in and out for the hedgehog, but so nothing else can dig in to attack the hedgehog or to get to his food. So now we're going to have to get this up to the woods, find a way. Okay, so we've picked a nice spot in the woods. There's lots of leaf litter around, there's lots of little log piles and leaf piles, so there's plenty of places to find food, to scurry around and to hide. Now we're going to dig the bottom of it into the ground so that nothing can get in to attack him while we go through the next phase of rehabilitation. Right, I think that'll do. Just had to dig a trench into the door to make sure it opened because we buried it too far into the ground. Will it open? Yeah! What? Were you expecting it to fit?
Yeah.
Just scoop it out.
Yeah,
So the idea of this, now we're starting to fill it in, is that he can perform his natural behaviours. He can't dig out and nothing can dig in and get him. And then we can get more of an idea of where he is within his rehabilitation. So we know that he can find his own food. There's a storm brewing right now. So at least this will compress the ground nicely and make sure it won't flood. And then over the course of a couple of days we'll put a tube in so then he can start to gradually integrate back out into the world, but he's got somewhere safe to come and somewhere where we know he's got food.
I'm just going to cover half of it and then it's protected. So that when we put food in, it feels like it's got some shelter. It doesn't rain down, basically. So its nest is going to go under there as well, so it just adds some extra warmth.
And now we're just filling it with leaf litter. So that he has something to dig around and hide in.
So we're going to leave that bed in there so it smells like him, so he feels like it is home. But for now, we're just going to leave him in here to be safe.
We're using the suspect that we've been keeping him in the stable, so he's used to the smell of it. He's got somewhere warm to be, and he's got somewhere where he thinks he can escape to if something comes in after him or around it. Just gonna put this under the shelter. Well, so one of the things with hedgehogs is you're meant to try to release them where they were from, because you get urban, you get rural hedgehogs who are used to surviving in different environments. Unfortunately, we didn't have the privilege of knowing where this one came from. He was just dropped off at Zoe's work, so we're putting him in a place where he's got a rural environment that's safe and wild to explore. There's plenty of log piles, plenty of leaf litter around. There's also a working farmyard and somewhere where he can go and get food, and more of an urban area nearby if he does want to move on and feel more comfortable in that area. For now, we're going to put him in for a few days in here and then gradually integrate him back into the wild, where he's got somewhere to come back to if he needs to, somewhere where he's safe. So we're also going to supplementary feed him for the first few weeks while he's integrating back into the wild. We'll feed him while he's in here. So we use cat food. Cat food's preferable to use over dog food for hedgehogs, and also it's a common myth that people like to put milk out for them, but they're actually lactose intolerant, so milk's really bad for hedgehogs. So we're about to let him go into his temporary enclosure. A few tips on releasing hedgehogs back into the wild. You want to make sure they're between 550 and 600 grams. This guy's only at about 450 at the moment, so we're going to keep him in here and feed him up for a few more days before we start to let him venture out. Then we're going to supplementary feed him. Before we let him out, we're going to throw some mealworms around and make sure that he's feeding on those and feeding naturally, and lower the amount of cat food that we give him gradually over a period of days. You'll notice we've got a little water dish in there. You want to keep a water dish that's quite shallow because they can actually drown themselves. And you want to make sure when you do release them, it's during the dusk, and it's when the air's a little bit moist, there's been some rain, they can still dig around, they can forage for worms, and they can behave naturally straight away. It's not that they're digging around with dry soil and struggling to find food when they're released. So I'm going to let this guy go. I'm going to let him go back into the cage that it's come from, and then we're going to leave him in peace. Come on then, buddy.
It's gone shy.
He's gone shy now. The rain's starting to pick up now, and he's still a little bit stressed and exploring his new environment, so we're going to leave him to it in the peace and quiet. Hello, buddy. Tomorrow we're going to scatter some mealworms around and set up a camera trap so we can see how he's getting on, but minimise our interaction with him, minimalise how much he sees people. Yeah, let's hope he settles in well.